Hey all, welcome to the first lesson of the year. We're going to talk about Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is kind of brief, just sort of introducing you to the subject of statistics. Okay, and statistics is all about data. There's the technical definition, where a collection of numbers, characters, images, or other items that provide information about something. So we want to collect data to tell us something about the world, tell us something about how things work, so we can find patterns and similarities. And just as a hint, as you're going through, I'm not going to do a lot of pausing, so if you need to write something down, make sure you pause the video so that you don't miss something that I say while you're trying to copy something down. So data is collected a lot of ways that you're probably used to, or maybe you're just unfamiliar with it, but social media accounts are a way to mine data. So your social media accounts, sometimes you'll notice there are ads that are associated with things that you've searched online, or maybe accounts that you follow, and that's because they're collecting data on you and they're trying to advertise specifically to your interests. When you make purchases with your credit card in certain stores, they take your information and your purchases that you made, and it allows them to send you different flyers, sort of target you as a consumer so they know what you'll spend money on. And of course, research. Research is always being done, and data needs to be collected. So in the real world, data vary. There's no perfect situation. This is life. Things are imperfect. But what we do when we collect data in statistics is we try to find patterns. We try to find relationships that occur even though there is variation. So one of the first things we need to talk about is sort of pulling out the important parts of a scenario. And I took this question, sorry, I took this question from page 6. It's the for example problem. I'll try to let you know where I get the problem. So you don't need to write this problem down as long as you write down where it comes from. This way you'll be able to reference in the book if you want to go back and understand what you took notes about. So this Consumer Reports article is talking about 25 tablet computers, and they collect information on a bunch of characteristics on these computers. And so we want to know the who about this. Who or is important to us. So this who is actually not a person or people, it is the tablets. So the population, the group we'd like to understand something about at the end of our study, is called the population, and in this case it's all the tablets manufactured. So almost always it's impossible to get an entire population's worth of information because populations tend to be very, very large. And so we take samples, and samples are just a collection of cases from the population that's representative of the population, and we use the data collected from that sample. Most of the time it's multiple samples to try and understand something about the population. So in this case, the Consumer Reports was evaluating 25 tablets, and so that would be our sample. So the population we're trying to learn about are all of the tablets, and the 25 tablets would be the sample we took in order to learn something about them. We want to know what it is we're measuring, and the things that we measure are called variables. These are just different characteristics that we're recording. And there are two specific types of variables that we'll talk about a lot this year. The first is categorical variable, and its name sort of identifies what it is that it's doing. We're separating cases into different categories. So male, female, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, something where we can just put somebody or something into a category based on its characteristics. And then we have quantitative variables, and you might guess that those have to do with some sort of measurement. They typically have units like feet or miles per hour, things like that. So the variables, there are many variables that this Consumer Reports article talked about. The first one being the manufacturer, and that of course would be categorical. The person who manufactured the tablet would be one of the categories. The cost of the tablet, that's a quantitative variable because we can measure that in dollar amount. Battery life is also quantitative. How many hours does the battery last? Operating system is categorical. It's either an iOS, a Android, or an RAM, which for those of you who don't know, I believe is associated with BlackBerry. And then of course performance score, which is quantitative. There's no units attached to this, but you're not being put into a category when you're given a score. This is something that's quantitative. So we also like to know the why and the how, and we'll get to that in the future. The how we collect information, the how we gather data is a very important topic. And then, of course, why we gather data is something that we can discuss in the future as well. So what I would like you to do right now, and hopefully you've been pausing when you need to, uh, I'd like you to pause right now. I'd like you to read this question. It's question 10, I'm sorry, question 7 from page 10. I want you to just identify who's the sample and the population and what type of variable we're measuring and what is the variable that we're trying to measure. So in this case, the sample is our 2,500 cars, and our population would be all cars that pass motorcycles, or I'm sorry, bicycles. Okay, and our what, the variable, is the distance that a car gives a bicycle when they pass. So that distance is measured in inches. We're trying to see if there is a difference in the distance when somebody's wearing a helmet or when they're not. So the who are the cars, the sample being specifically these 2,500 cars, and the what is the distance between the car and the bicyclist. And of course the units of that would be inches. So I'm going to attach a question here uh, associated to this scenario. This is number 8 from page 10. So I put it on here for you just in case I haven't been able to give you a book yet. And I'm going to ask you some questions. And if you have questions about this lesson, make sure you ask me in class.